many hangovers. I'm Dan Bloom, political editor in the UK for Politico. Very pleased to be joined this morning by Gary Smith, the General Secretary of the GMB Union, who does not have a pint, and nor do I, because we've all suffered a bit too much, I think. Have you been to any good parties this conference?
I tend not to do them. I've been to too many of these events. Early to bed, early to rise and all that.
Okay.
I might get along here this evening though. It's the last night. So.
What's the favourite thing you've done at conference so far? Have you done any DJing or all that stuff?
Oh, gee whiz, too old. That's cringeworthy. No, my favourite conference moment was yesterday. One of our shop stewards, Matt, who's one of the conveners actually at Hinkley Point, introduced the Chancellor, talking about what investment actually means, what it delivers in terms of jobs and opportunity and hope. 1,800 apprentices working on the Hinkley site, and Matt was so proud to introduce the Chancellor, and that's where you see that politics makes a difference. And so it was a hugely emotional day for us yesterday.
So it's the PM's speech today. What are you hoping to see from that? What's the number one thing you want him to say?
Look, we're in the jobs business as a union. What we're interested in is investment. It's about how we're bringing jobs and hope back to working class communities. I want to keep hearing the themes about procurement, buying stuff in the UK. I want to keep hearing themes about how we're going to use the investment that's going into areas like defence and into energy. We want to hear how that is going to benefit communities. I go to Barrow-in-Furness, I can see tangibly that town coming to life because of the investment in defence. There's an old Debenham store which they've turned into a training centre. We're going to put thousands of apprentices through this training centre. Right in the town centre there's going to be a submarine in a training centre, and the community is already coming to life, and we're going to replicate that in Plymouth. I want to see that done in Glasgow and the Upper Clyde. I want to see more done around apprenticeships in areas like Fife. So what I'm interested in is the economy, it's jobs, it's investment, and of course the Labour's really positive agenda on trade union and worker rights. I want to hear how that is, the commitment that is going to get implemented in full, and I hope we'll hear that today.
Okay. I want to talk a bit about the hard politics of what's going on here. So the big theme of this conference, right, is that the PM and the Labour Party are deciding to attack Nigel Farage a little bit more, take him on. Do you kind of welcome that? Do you think that will stop people going to reform or pull them back?
I think the battle's got to be taken on. It absolutely sticks in my throat, quite frankly, to see posh boys pretending to represent working class interests in this country. The reform agenda, I get all the sound bites or the messages that they try to give out. All the opportunism around British Steel and nationalisation. We argued to take British Steel into public ownership because we knew the Chinese owners wouldn't save it. It was us who called for that early. And when the chips were down and when Reform had an opportunity to vote against fire and rehire, to actually give people the right to organise in unions, or stronger rights to organise in unions and have a strong collective voice, Reform voted against it. And then to listen to Farage talking about unions and workers, and I just don't buy it. So I'm glad that we're taking them on, and I'm glad that they're going to get called out for what they actually represent.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, that PM called the reform policy on deporting lots of people, including with indefinite leave to remain, racist at the weekend, didn't he? Labour's also putting out policy this week. Shabana Mahmood was talking about it yesterday, where they're going to make it harder to get indefinite leave to remain. It'll take longer. You have to do things like community service. I just wonder what you think of that, because you've got members who are in things like social care, haven't you? Like, is that going to kind of affect your members? Are you worried about that?
We get the whole debate over migration is highly emotive. It's difficult. This is an international challenge. You know, people are on the move across the globe, and there's no simple solution to it. And I get the emotion around it. But what I do fear, and what we're not going to tolerate is a climate in this country where people who are making a contribution, people who are working in the economy, people who are raising families and doing the right thing, are being made to feel unwelcome. I listen to all this negativity about migration, and yet we can all think of 1,000 stories about the positive impact migration's had on our own families and in our own our own communities. And just to tell this story, just before lockdown, there's a my mum and dad, they're elderly. They have an Indian family, migrant family from India, move in next door. The kids are like my mum and dad's surrogate grandchildren. That family fed and looked after my mum and dad all through lockdown. These are the positive stories about migration. A wonderful, beautiful family who every day care for my mum and dad because I can't be there all the time. And I'm not going to tolerate and stand back and tolerate a country where intolerance and racism become somehow legitimised.
So I'm not suggesting the PM's, doing intolerance and racism here, but they are setting out a policy to make it harder for people like that to get their ILR. Like, do you think that's an issue?
I've not looked at the detail of this. I think I get that migration and immigration is a highly emotive topic, but I am super conscious of the work that our members do, migrant workers, the work that they're doing, not just in social care, not just in health, but in manufacturing, across our private and public services. And I think we need to be the government are trying to respond to the electorate, I get that, but we need to be very careful with not feeding stories that are going to make communities feel unwelcome in this country, or that we're feeding racism. And let me just say,
do you think the government's doing that?
No, I hope not. But look, what underneath all this, what is driving people's anger and frustration is people feel poorer. People are feeling worse off. And Labour's big challenge is about getting the economy moving. Look, globalisation, neoliberalism, that whole economic, that whole political economy, the whole geopolitical situation is moving on. And there is an opportunity now for Labour to better define the UK's place in the world. There is an opportunity to respond to what people really want. Folk are not voting for cheap TVs and training shoes anymore. They want the factories back. They want decent quality employment back. They want wages to be rising. It's economic insecurity that is driving a lot of people's anger and frustration. And the key that Labour can do is bring back jobs and hope.
Well, that's a very neat segue, bringing back the factories. Shall we talk about energy policy? It's your favourite topic, I think. I mean, your fellow union boss, you don't agree on everything, shall we say, Sharon Graham. I think she's called the government's net zero policy a complete mess, disaster zone. Do you agree?
Look, where we are very different from a lot of people on the right who have made critique of energy policy is we are not climate deniers. But we have to be pragmatic and honest and sober about energy policy, and we cannot carry on, because this is what has happened, of having a policy of decarbonisation through deindustrialisation. You close Port Talbot, it's a disaster for that local community and the local economy. But of course, notionally, your carbon emissions go down. Actually, they go up because you're importing steel now from China or India, places that are burning coal to produce it. But there needs to be a more sober and honest debate, and I think people are moving towards us. I think they're starting to listen to us as a union. Moving to net zero is not cheap, it is not going to be easy, and it has consequences if you get it wrong, huge consequences for the economy and for working people. And the truth is, at the moment, the whole green thing, the net zero thing, is switching working class communities off. People are not buying it.
How much do you think it's down to Ed Miliband? Because he's a real believer in this stuff, right? And he's stuck in place and he's gone for it.
I'm not interested in honestly, coming into this week, all the jostling, all the gaming that's going on around politics, I'm not interested in the personalities, I'm interested in the politics. I don't think the government is in the right place on energy. I've said this consistently for a long time. I think they're doing some great stuff, by the way, new nuclear. Sizewell is absolutely the right thing to do, and I would like us to be going beyond Sizewell. So the Chancellor came to our Congress and announced Sizewell. We fought as a union to keep Sizewell, or to get Sizewell in the Labour manifesto, and Rachel Reeves is delivering that. It's great. We want to see new nuclear now in Wales and in Scotland, because that's real jobs. We're going to have 14,000 people working on the Hinckley site. 1,800 apprentices, and under our union agreements, that labour force now moves to build Sizewell.
Do you think, I mean, you're also Scottish, you take a keen interest in the Holyrood elections and stuff. How is this going to? How you obviously have misgivings about the policy. How do you think this is going to affect Labour in 2026?
Well, first of all, in terms of the positives, new nuclear is a huge opportunity. And if we go beyond Sizewell, we will build a bigger manufacturing supply chain for new nuclear. So let's talk about Torness, let's talk about Hunterston in Scotland and the bonkers policy for the SNP, which is against new nuclear. In terms of oil and gas, they are just in the wrong place. And if the government is going to move, not just on licensing, but also on taxation, we can bring investment, jobs and hope and opportunity back, particularly in the northeast of Scotland. But remember, nearly half the labour force offshore is actually based in the northeast of England. This is not a Scottish issue. This is a UK-wide issue. And I've been very...
it'll cost Labour at the polls? Do you think it's going to...
I think it's costing Labour at the polls. You go to the northeast of Scotland, they're not voting Labour. And the problem is, when you go offshore, as I do, and you speak to workers offshore, half of them, or a sizable chunk of them, are for the northeast of England. And people... What has struck me even going offshore over the past 12, 18 months, you speak to workers, they are now seeing viable assets facing closure, and there is a fear that has crept in. And this is an absolutely true story. I was offshore earlier this year, and I was this really impressive worker that I met, very big into safety and the culture, and he was making sure we were all safe and behaving appropriately when we land in a helicopter. He made the point to me that it's starting to feel like Middlesbrough in the 1980s. They're closing down industry, and how emotional and upset he was absolutely struck me.
Do you worry this is an energy security thing? How much is that part of your thinking? Because we've only got 4 oil refineries left, and
there's a number of aspects to energy. It is the economy, both in terms of affordability, but also in terms of jobs. Energy is really important in terms of jobs. And manufacturing industry depends on affordable energy as well. And by the way, all this discussion about electricity, British industry runs on gas. But of course there is a national security imperative here. If we have a beast from the east, and we have a pipe or a cable that goes down because we're dependent on importing so much of our gas from Norway and so much of our electricity for the continent, if you have a combination of a beast for the east and somebody interfering with cables, and we've had this in the past and in the recent past, the country would face a real problem. And let's remember, the Tories, I listened to the Tories speaking on the TV the other day, they closed gas storage. They closed it down. We're an island nation that is now left hugely dependent on energy imports to keep the lights on and keep our homes heated and industry powered. And by the way, the same Tory government allowed the Royal Navy the Royal Navy's in the dry dock. So we don't even have a navy, and we're a nation that is so dependent now on energy imports. It's bad for the environment, it's terrible for the economy, and it's a potential disaster for national security.
So a lot of it's about the North Sea, as you said. Desnes, it sounds like they're showing signs of maybe getting a bit of flexibility about their North Sea situation, but at the moment, it's no new licences. What are you hearing about that consultation? Have you heard anything about when it might come, what it might say, anything like that?
I hope there'll be something in October, certainly something around the budget. My caution to Labour would be this: don't fudge it.
What?
Do not fudge the policy on oil and gas. Labour is in the wrong place on oil and gas, and we've got to move. We cannot have a situation where Norway is drilling and finding new fields, and you're going to have yards in our North Sea, in the UK part of the North Sea, that you've got to have rigs that are facing closure, getting towed off to Turkey to get dismantled, and they're going to be looking at over the line at Norwegian rigs that are just starting to drill. I mean, this is bonkers.
You want to drill, baby, drill.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I'm just pragmatic and realistic. We're going to need oil and gas for a long time to come. And by the way, this nonsense that we're moving to electric heating anytime soon, it's rubbish. People connecting to the gas grid, the numbers are going up. The AI data centres are going to need gas for energy. That's the truth of the matter. So maybe there's I hope the Desnes team are listening to us more, and I hope, well, if they don't listen to us, they're going to face some harsh realities.
So we're also going to get in the autumn some detail on the warm homes plans, spending billions on kind of replacing gas boilers with heat pumps and stuff. Is the workforce there, and how can the government get it there? Are there enough engineers in the country?
We're not moving to heat pumps anytime soon. Don't worry about it.
What? Who's not having them? You personally, or the whole country?
The country. Look at where the heat pumps are being installed. People with second homes in the southwest of England and Tunbridge Wells. No disrespect to people in Tunbridge Wells.
I'm not from Tunbridge Wells.
No, I know. The idea that we're moving to electric heating and electric solutions is just rubbish. It's not going to happen. The technology will come, but it ain't going to be heat pumps, and they're part of the solution, but that's not going to be done at scale anytime soon. You're going to need a third bedroom in your house for all your kit. You need space outside for your heat pump. You need 15 or 16 grand for your heat pump. It's a huge job, and not every house is going to be compatible with them. And then you've got the problem about energy efficiency in our homes. We are going to be dependent on gas boilers for a very, very long time to come. And I can't emphasise this enough, because I listen to misunderstandings from politicians and rubbish for people in government that somehow gas connections are going down. They're not. More people are connecting to gas. And look at your gas, the price of gas versus electricity. The reason we heat our homes with gas, even though gas prices have gone up, it's still 4 times cheaper than electricity. So the economics of this, the idea that you're going to spend 16 grand on a heat pump, that you're going to put all the storage stuff and all the kit in your spare room if you've got a third bedroom and you've got space in your garden, and then your bills are going to go up, and it's a less efficient form of heating. It's just nonsense.
So I want to whip through just a few other things,
Sure.
and then we're going to go to the roving mic. So, serious point. You were chased through a car park by Sky News at the TUC, and I think you told them that you don't recognise that there's any problem in the union with bullying or cronyism or sexism. The question to you is just, how can you be sure about that?
We are a very big and old organisation and institution, and like a lot of institutions, we've let people down and got stuff wrong. The difference with us is we've had the courage to hold a mirror up to ourselves and change and put forward a programme of change. But what I'm not going to do is have us misrepresented as a union either. This is a better union. We had a lot of challenges. I think we've done a lot of things to clean up stuff within the union and speak to this. You know, half our leadership is senior women. Our senior leadership is women now. Speak to them about their experiences. But recently we've made some difficult decisions. I've sacked somebody, and in part, large part of that was about accusations of racism, and I'm not going to apologise for that. Zero tolerance of racism, and I don't care whether you're a man or woman. If you get stuff wrong in our union, you'll be held to account for it.
So Sky have obviously done a lot of reporting on this. They've been talking to women in the union who say it's still an ongoing thing. Are you saying that those people are wrong, or that it's just coming from this one person you've mentioned?
We have, no, I'm not just saying it's coming from one person. We've had a difficult job. I inherited a really tough situation. My predecessor left under the most difficult circumstances with an independent inquiry into the union. We're doing a big staff survey at the moment. Let's see where we get to with that. But speak to the women in our union. This is a more diverse union. It's a better union. We've done a lot of work on culture. Are we perfect? Absolutely far from it. But recently, I think some of this stuff gets stoked because we have had to take action against people, and I make no apologies for that.
The Monaghan report was in 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it made a whole load of recommendations.
Yeah.
Are those all in place now? Are they all
No.
implemented?
We've. It's interesting.
It's 5 years ago.
So we've done a lot of work on the Monaghan report. We've just had a review of Monaghan, and we've just started a big piece of work. You don't change a culture through a report. You have to keep working at it, and that's what we're doing, both with our staff and with our lay members in the union. But this is a far from perfect union. I'm far from perfect as a leader. If I get stuff wrong, if we get stuff wrong as a union, we will face into that and deal with it. But it's a far better, stronger, healthier organisation than it was. And actually, we have taken action against individuals, but speak to the people in the union, and I think they would tell you this is a far better union now.
All right. We'll move on to, I think there's a General Secretary election coming up soon. Are you planning to run again? Apologies if you've said already.
Christina's up for election, Sharon Graham's up for election. I wish them all the best in their campaigns. Our rule book's slightly different. I'll make a decision with our team next year about what we're going to do.
Deputy leadership, you've backed Bridget Phillipson,
Yeah.
I think. I don't mean to be mean to Bridget Phillipson. What are you hoping she will actually achieve in government that she, doesn't already
Well,
do?
first of all, she's 20 odd years as a GMB member. It does count for a bit with us. We like loyalty and we like support and bat up for our own team. Bridget, we have a huge membership in education support, classroom assistants and support staff in education, predominantly women, low-paid women workers. What Labour have committed to do, and Bridget is 100% behind, is bringing in a school support staff negotiating body. So school support staff workers will have a stronger voice in the way that teachers have, and they should have, because the role they play within education. So that has been a big conversation with Bridget. She's very committed to that, and it's about 150,000 of our members that impacts. Over and above that, Bridget's commitment to the New Deal for working people, absolutely fantastic, and I think we share a lot in common in terms of worldview and values around the party. But I'm not going to hide from it. She's 20 plus years in the union. That means something to me.
I'll go to some quick fire,
Sure.
and then I'll go to some roving mites. So, best ever Labour leader?
I'll tell you, the greatest ever Labour politician I met was Dennis Healy. I got to spend a few hours with him, and I have never, and instinctively coming from my politics, you kind of had all this, he's the big right-wing bogeyman. I had time on my own with him, and what an incredible character. He served on the beaches of Anzio. He met every Soviet leader after Stalin. He knew the founders of Israel. I said to him, who were the greatest politicians you ever met? He said, the Chinese and the Vietnamese, without a shadow of a doubt. This is a man who spent time and was friends with Nixon. Very critical of Nixon on a personal level, but also made the point he was very good in terms of engagement with China. And he had this wonderful hinterland. And I had the pleasure, I even got to ask him about Spycatcher and the threats of coups against Harold Wilson. It was the most incredible day that I spent with this man, and then sat having a dram with him in his house, which was a lovely way to top it off. So I've been very fortunate to meet Tony Blair. I'm friends with Gordon Brown. I have huge regard, and I like Keir Starmer a lot. But I've got to say, and I've met many politicians, some of whom are real heroes of mine. But if you want that day that will stick with me for the rest of my life, it was with Dennis Healy.
Oh, you like this one less. Best Tory politician?
No, I'm not even going to mention names because there is one that I quite like.
In office now?
He's still an MP. I like him, and it's not just because he happens to be Scottish by birth. I do like him, but he did say to me once, I said, look, it's not good for my career to be seen around you. He said, it's not good for my career being seen around you. So we kind of keep a bit of distance. Though I saw him after the general election, and I said to him, look, I'm glad, I wasn't glad that he got elected. I said, but it's interesting to see he's still elected. But I loved saying to him that the GMB group in Parliament is now bigger than the Tory party.
Burnham or Starmer? In a word?
Starmer. I mean, Andy Burnham, the idea that the electorate is interested in gameplay, and particularly at the moment, folk just want politicians to get on and do the job they were elected to do. Keir's got a mandate, he's got a huge mandate for last year. Get on and do the job.
Let's go to some questions. Do we have any in the room? We've got Paul Hutchin over here. The Scottish lobby has...
Oh, no.
Gary, just on the Scottish election next year, Labour are 17 points behind in the opinion polls. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a number of things, Paul. I'm really interested in your view on it, but actually I know you're the one asking the questions. I think, first of all, Scottish Labour has a decent general election because the National Party was doing well. And Scottish Labour is struggling because the National Party has made a lot of mistakes, or a number of mistakes, and it is struggling as well. And therefore, I think the the position with the Scottish Party is going to be absolutely impacted by Labour nationally. So, you know, the Labour government really needs to get things moving, and I'm hugely optimistic, which is not my normal disposition. I think things will turn, but I think the challenge for Scottish Labour is in terms of what do they stand for, and distilling that down. And I think what Scottish Labour and the Labour government nationally needs to do is amplify more some of the good stuff that is going on, both in Scotland and across the UK. I was a bit frustrated. This story about bringing frigates to the Clyde, you know, from Norway. We're rebuilding the Clyde. I mean, this should be up in lights. You know, the SNP have appropriated all the history of the Red Clyde, by the way, who were munitions workers, not, you know, people forget that. We are, a Labour government is rebuilding the Clyde. And actually, the people who are getting in the way from rebuilding defence jobs in Scotland are the SNP. The party that's getting in the way of building or creating thousands of jobs in the energy sector is the SNP. They've been all over the place on oil and gas, and they're anti-nuclear. We've got something like 1,200 workers a week, I think, are travelling from Scotland, construction workers, to work at Hinckley. It's bonkers, because they're not getting the opportunities that they could or should in Scotland. So I think the National Party position is impacting Scottish Labour. The challenge for Scottish Labour, I think, is to have a clearer identity and set of policies. And then I think for Scottish Labour and the National Labour government is to amplify the good stuff that they are doing. The Harland and Wolff yards are open because of an interventionist Labour government. Steel is still being produced in this country because of an interventionist Labour government. Babcock's and Fife is going to be busy because of a Labour government, and we're rebuilding shipbuilding on the Clyde. Why are we not telling that story in a better way?
Do we have any more? Yes.
Hi, Gary. Andrew Quinn from The Scotsman. Do you think then that the UK government should take away planning powers from the Scottish government so that they can build nuclear in Scotland? And also, do you think the PM could learn it for Donald Trump?
For Donald Trump in terms of what, golf?
I don't know, in terms of how he speaks or how he relates to. He obviously relates to working class people. He's big on energy policy.
Well, first of all, I mean, you know, the stuff on climate change denial is just, you know, it's not where the science is, it's not the real world. So I don't think he could or should learn anything on that regard. What the American New Right got, and this is Trump is at the apex of that, but it's also Vance as well. And Vance actually seems more like the thinker and ideologue around this stuff. They got that working class people and working class communities were abandoned. Working people in this country, in Scotland or across the UK, feel poorer and they feel angry. They're living in too many communities that look broken and beat. We've still got communities, particularly in the west coast of Scotland, but all across the central belt, that have never recovered for the 80s. And the American New Right got that and articulate stuff that connects with people. And so there is stuff we need to learn from that, and that is about listening to working class people's concerns. People are not voting for cheap TVs and cheap training shoes anymore, and the whole globalisation agenda. People want jobs back. They want opportunity back. They want their standard of living to be raised again. They want to feel positive and good about stuff. So does the Prime Minister learn a lot from Trump? No. But what we do need to get better is connecting and listening to working class people. Sorry, what was the other bit of the question?
Do you think the UK government should take away planning powers from Scottish government? So then we could have nuclear in Scotland if they did that? I
think we would then get into a stupid fight about the politics of Scotland versus Westminster, rather than, I think, what we should be doing, or what Labour should be doing, is challenging the SNP's pretty rotten track record on the economy and investment and jobs. And let's just have the straight argument and fight about the realities of new nuclear. The SNP have consistently told us that this renewable stuff was going to bring tens of thousands of jobs and prosperity to Scotland. Where are the jobs? Energy bills have gone through the roof, and the jobs never came. You go to Fife, the NNG wind farm, 10 miles off the coast of Fife. We've got an empty yard sitting in Methil, or nearly empty, saved by a Labour government, the Harland Wolff yard. That wind farm, the Scottish Government goes to court to get that wind farm consented, taken on the RSPB, and then it's going to bring loads of jobs. There's a big campaign to bring it. What happens? As soon as the project's consented and gets the go-ahead, the work gets taken away to Indonesia. And you won't hear Swinney now talking about green jobs in the way that they did, because they've no idea about how they're going to make that happen. So I don't want to get into planning regulation debate with the Scottish Parliament. What we do need to talk about is the SNP's track record, because it's lousy.
Well, on that happy note,
I'm feeling positive.
thank you very much for coming in. We're to time. So thank you, Gary Smith, for giving us your time. Cheers.
And hopefully I'll get back this evening. Carry on the conversation.
Where are you going back to?
Here.
Here. Oh, right, here to the pub. Good.
Up in the bar's open.
You can pull a pint. We are taking a break now, and we'll be back at 12:40 for Lucy Powell, just before the Prime Minister's speech at 2. So join us then. Thanks.